It's been a little over 15 years since Bioware released the groundbreaking first entry in their classic space RPG franchise. Mass Effect was released as an Xbox exclusive title on November 26, 2007, and went on to sell over 500,000 copies by the end of the year. Critics and gamers alike praised the game's interactive storytelling, memorable characters, and engaging combat. What's up, everyone? Big Dan here, and in this video, we're doing a deep dive critique of Mass Effect 1 with a focus on the gameplay, Squadmates, story, and the legacy of this trailblazing title. There will be massive spoilers throughout the video, so if you haven't played this game yet, go pick up a copy of Mass Effect Legendary Edition and dive headfirst into the experience. You won't regret it. I initially planned to make this review back in November for the 15th anniversary, but I got a little sidetracked because of Cyberpunk and then Hogwarts Legacy. But I haven't forgotten my promise to make a long-form Mass Effect 1 critique for you all to round out the series. I also have long-form critiques on Mass Effect 2 and 3, which I'll link in the description and pinned comment if you want to check those out. You might be thinking, why did I do these critiques in reverse order? Because hey man, I do what I want. There are timestamps in the description of this video as well if you want to skip to a particular section, so buckle up, grab some iced coffee, and let's dive into the world of Mass Effect 1. Bioware's first breakout successes, Baldur's Gate and Knights of the Old Republic, were based on IP owned by other companies. But the studio always had ambitions to develop their own fantasy and science fiction games without the creative constraints of Dungeons & Dragons and Star Wars. So shortly after the release of KOTOR, the studio got to work on a project called Science Fiction X. According to project director Casey Hudson, BioWare spent a long time trying to figure out a name for their new sci-fi game before eventually landing on Mass Effect. This name was chosen because it related to the dark energy we use to drive a lot of the technology. It inspired things about tipping points and being able to influence large things, and it was a name that we didn't hate. From the start, Hudson and the team conceptualized Mass Effect as a trilogy that would allow the player to engage in dynamic conversations and make big story choices with massive consequences. In many RPGs at the time, players would have to read walls of text before making dialogue choices. This slowed down conversations to the pace of DJ Khaled on a treadmill, as gamers had to break up the action to consider what their character would say next. The early gameplay demos showcased at E3 2006 highlight Mass Effect's new approach to dialogue.
For Mass Effect, our goal is to create the most reactive and dynamic dialogue system ever seen in a video game.
Besides, Commander, insults won't get you the info you need.
1 billion lives are hanging in the balance here. I won't let some pissant bartender slow me down.
Wait! Hold on! I just remembered. She's in the casino, upstairs. You can't miss her!
The combat in these demos was a bit rough around the edges, though. Early builds of Mass Effect stressed a lot more tactical elements, such as pausing the action to move your squadmates with a janky little cursor. Compared to contemporary shooters like Halo and Gears of War, the combat was very outdated, so BioWare spent a lot of time in the later part of development reworking it into the system we saw on release. And unlike Star Citizen developers, BioWare cut a lot of content and ideas to prevent scope creep from consuming their new project. The story initially had a number of major plot twists, but BioWare realized this would make the narrative too cluttered, so they cut down to the core concept of stopping the Reapers. Uncharted Worlds got the shortest end of the stick, and much of ME1's side content looks like it needed some more time in the oven, but we'll touch on that more later. Mass Effect starts with you creating and customizing the Commander Shepard of your dreams. You can choose from 6 different combat classes and 2 different types of backgrounds, each with 3 different options. To top it off, you can customize Shepard's appearance and gender, though I typically like to stay with the iconic default appearances whether I'm playing as Bro Shep or Fem Shep. The pre-service histories, Earthborn, Colonist, and Spacer, will determine what Shepard's life was like before they joined the Alliance military. Earthborn characters grew up as an orphan gangster. Colonists saw their parents wiped out during a Batarian attack on Mindwar, and Spacers moved between different ships and systems due to Mama Shepard serving on an Alliance cruiser. NPCs will comment on your background throughout the story.
If anyone is going to uncover corruption here, it's the hero of the Skillian Blitz.
And each pre-service history comes with a unique side mission as well. The psychological profiles, Sole Survivor, War Hero, and Ruthless, highlight Shepard's claim to fame in the military. Sole Survivors saw their entire unit wiped out by a Thresher Maw attack on a Kuz, but lived to tell about it. War Heroes repelled a pirate attack on the human colony of Elysium. And Ruthless Shepards destroyed a group of Batarians on Torfin, losing half of their squad in the process.
I know you, the Butcher of Torfin.
The psychological profiles determine your starting morality score. War Hero boosts Paragon, Ruthless boosts Renegade, and Sole Survivor balances the two. Many NPCs will also comment on your psychological profile, and while you don't have any unique side missions like the pre-service histories, there are sometimes unique quest outcomes, such as Sole Survivors confronting Corporal Toombs during the quest UNC Dead Scientists. Compared to modern shooters and even some contemporaries like Halo, Mass Effect's combat is a bit rough around the edges. This was only BioWare's second game with actual real-time combat, and their first one with real-time gunplay. All of their previous titles involved strategic combat, where you would queue up different actions and abilities and let the dice decide the outcome. So for their first foray into guns and magic, Mass Effect 1 is pretty good. Mass Effect 1 saw the most changes to combat in the remastered Legendary Edition. Sprinting was changed up to line up more with Mass Effect 2's gameplay system. In the original, the camera would zoom into your character whenever you sprinted, and you'd have a little stamina bar that would deplete. Shepard seemed fast as though, and I honestly kind of missed the sprinting in the original Mass Effect. The keybinds were also changed. Sprinting used to be activated with the Shift key, but now it's spacebar like Mass Effect 2 and 3. Other keybinds were changed as well, such as Grenades, which was formerly mapped to the R button, which is most commonly used for reloading weapons in shooters. In Mass Effect 1, there is no weapon reloading, but due to muscle memory, many players would instinctively hit the reload key and end up chucking a grenade instead. But now grenades are mapped to the G key, so this mishap is much less common. Speaking of weapon reloading, as I mentioned, it doesn't exist in Mass Effect 1. Instead of running out of ammo, your weapon overheats and needs to cool down before you can continue firing. So you won't have to worry about managing ammo counts, but instead firing your weapons at a rate so they don't totally overheat and go on cooldown. Mass Effect changed to ammo counts, aka thermal clips, in Mass Effect 2 and 3, leading to some mental gymnastics in the lore and hilarious memes within the game.
Seems this place is hard-pressed for supplies. I think I saw some guys fighting over a thermal clip. A what? A thermal clip. They stop weapons from overheating. I'm sorry, just a joke.
Wait, where do these thermal clips come from? I thought weapons cooled down.
They used to. After the Geth attack a few years back, we switched to thermal clips.
Well, that sounds like a major step backward.
The original Mass Effect 1 also had massive weapon sway whenever you equipped a gun that your class wasn't proficient in. For instance, if you played as an adept and tried to use a sniper rifle, well, good luck hitting your target. In Legendary Edition, this weapon sway is removed, so any class can adequately use any gun. Side note, the restrictions on weapon type are harsher in Mass Effect 2 compared to the first game, and those restrictions have remained in Legendary Edition. One holdout from BioWare's old-school RPGs is the tactical pause menu. Anytime in combat, you can pause the action by holding the Shift key. This brings up a tactical menu with all of Shepard and crew's abilities, allowing you to issue specific commands to your squadmates in battle. Of course, you can hotkey abilities as well, so you don't need to use the tactical pause menu, but it's an option for those who prefer it. I've gotten so used to the tactical pause menu over the years that it's my preferred method for selecting abilities, much to the chagrin of my livestream chatters who constantly ask why I don't use hotkeys. Because I'm stubborn and I'll never change. Thank you very much. BioWare also took a unique approach to the morality system. Rather than having a binary good versus evil scale for morality like most of their previous titles, in Mass Effect, the two poles of morality are Paragon and Renegade. Paragons are the typical good guy hero types. They seek to save the most lives, strive for diplomatic solutions, and arrest criminals instead of killing them. On the other hand, Renegades aren't evil, but they are more open to making morally gray or ruthless actions in order to achieve their goals. So for instance, while a Paragon might choose to spare an enemy's life in order to take the high road, or follow the letter of the law, Renegades may execute them to prevent the criminal from doing more harm in the future. Why take the risk of bad guys running free when you can solve things with your gun? I wouldn't say that the morality system is revolutionary by any means, and it's still more binary than modern RPGs, many of which have ditched morality systems in favor of letting the player make whatever choices feel right for their character in a particular context, without coloring them with an arbitrary morality label. The side content in Mass Effect 1 is a mixed bag to say the least. There are some memorable standout quests like Admiral Kahoku's investigation into Cerberus, Conrad Werner's rabid fandom, and biotic terrorists kidnapping a politician to demand reparations, but then there are quests like collecting gas deposits and scanning keepers, which are so boring I'd rather file my taxes. Many side quests will take us to so-called uncharted worlds, uncolonized planets with explorable zones that we can traverse with the much memed-on Mako. Side note, the Mako's steering sensitivity was altered in Mass Effect Legendary Edition, so it's a bit easier to drive than it was in the original. This part of Mass Effect feels really undercooked. Most Uncharted worlds are empty maps with a few scattered collectibles and prefab buildings. Even really cool moments, such as discovering the Prothean artifact on Elitania, feel half-baked. It would have been really cool to see this connection between humans and Protheans as a cutscene flashback, but instead we're just greeted with a wall of text. I guess it's better to have this than nothing at all, but it makes me wonder what Bioware could have done with Uncharted Worlds if they had more time and resources to realize their vision here. Ultimately, Uncharted Worlds and vehicle exploration would be practically non-existent in the sequels, so Mass Effect 1 is unique in the way it allows the player to explore the Milky Way. It's difficult to talk about the Squadmates in Mass Effect 1 after playing the entire trilogy. Our opinions on these characters have been shaped by our experience of the entire series, not just the first entry. And if I'm being honest, a lot of the best character development comes in Mass Effect 2 and 3. Shepard has 6 Squadmates in Mass Effect 1, and with the exception of Kaidan, the commander's relationship with each of these characters is brand new. This ragtag group of aliens and Alliance military vets is brought together by a shared goal: to thwart Saren's plans and get to the bottom of this whole Reaper thing. Unlike Mass Effect 2 and 3, there is little talk of loyalty or friendship, which makes sense. In the beginning, each of Shepard's Squadmates is only on the Normandy because of a shared goal. Whereas in Mass Effect 2, characters like Garrus and Tali join Shepard's crew largely because of their loyalty to Shepard. By Mass Effect 3, most of the original 6 Squadmates will join you as a given. Like, duh, we're obviously ride or die Shepard. Rex is an exception because he has to lead his entire people, but he's still supporting the cause. And the Virmire survivor could come to odds with Shepard, but Liara, Garrus, and Tali automatically join Shepard without question. In Mass Effect 1, your relationship with your Squadmates is largely professional. Sure, you can form a romantic attachment with one of 3 different characters, and your Squadmates do warm up to Shepard by the end of the game, but you don't achieve that next level of closeness with these characters in Mass Effect 1. This leaves the squad feeling a little less fleshed out than subsequent entries. It's no fault of the game, it's just what comes with being the first entry in the series. The writers don't have the benefit of building on previous games, they're starting with these characters from scratch. So let's take a look at each Squadmate in depth, starting with Kaidan. I've never really connected with this character, and in most of my playthroughs, he ends up as a pile of ashes on Virmire. I've grown to like him a little bit more over subsequent playthroughs, but he's definitely one of the weaker characters in Mass Effect, both in the first game and in the full trilogy. Kaidan's backstory largely revolves around his biotic training. Unlike the Asari, humans with a proclivity for biotics have to exert a tremendous amount of effort, undergo extensive training, and buff their skills with neural implants to fully harness their space magic. The implants in particular, especially the older L2 models, have a number of negative side effects ranging from headaches to violent insanity. We're told that Kaidan just has headaches, but now that I think about it, Kaidan did tell us he killed a guy in a fit of rage that one time at Biotic Camp.
I killed him, Shepard. Snapped his neck.
Jesus, dude. Overall, Kaidan is pretty boring to me. The human squadmates in this game just pale in comparison to the alien ones. However, I do find the Renegade Kaidan arc to be pretty interesting because it's a surprising personality shift on the part of the lieutenant. If you play as a female Shepard and romance Kaidan, you will have the opportunity to shift him to a more renegade perspective if you choose the correct dialogue options. I have a full video on how to do that if you want to know all the steps, but it shifts Kaidan's personality in a pretty wild direction when it comes to his views on aliens.
What happens if this doesn't work out, Shepard? I mean, we mutinied, we stole a prototype warship. If they wanted to get technical, they could throw in kidnapping. And those damned aliens sure love to get technical, don't they?
Ashley Williams is the second squadmate we recruit, shortly after Jenkins kicks the bucket. Much like the renegade version of Kaidan, Ashley's views on aliens are a wee bit controversial. Some players in the fandom have dubbed her a space racist, a term which always cracks me up a bit. I don't think Ashley is a full-blown racist, but she definitely thinks in terms of advancing humanity's interests first and foremost. That being said, she's not some right-wing nutjob. In fact, she's highly critical of the Terra Firma Party, which openly espouses anti-alien rhetoric.
Our core value is that Earth must stand firm against alien influences, politically, culturally, and in the worst case, militarily.
It's a noble goal. Too bad so many of your supporters are just racists.
Ashley's grandfather was a commander in the Alliance military who went down in disgrace as the only commanding officer ever to surrender to an alien force during the infamous Battle of Shanxi.
We have a backlog of grievances the aliens have ignored, starting with Shanxi.
Were you at Shanxi? If not, shut your pie hole.
The Williams family was effectively blackballed in the military afterwards, so Ashley has a bit of a chip on her shoulder. Ashley largely blames the Turians, and aliens in general, for what happened to her grandfather, since it was the Turians he surrendered to. But setting politics aside, Ashley is a generally personable character. I love the banter between Shepard and Ashley, particularly if you select renegade dialogue options. It's some of the funniest content in the game.
Good thing I have my rabbit's foot. It should counteract all the negative waves.
Just don't wave it around, Skipper. Rex might be hungry.
The poetry is a bit nauseating, though. As far as Ashley's character arc go, putting aside her distaste for aliens, she's probably most likable in Mass Effect 1. And then generally, she becomes more annoying in Mass Effect 2 and 3 with her whole distrusting Shepard arc. Garrus Vakarian is widely regarded as the most liked squadmate in the entire Mass Effect franchise, but a lot of the traits we love about Garrus aren't really visible to us in the first Mass Effect. We don't see a lot of that famous Vakarian charm. Since his relationship with Shepard is so new, he's much more reserved than what we get to see in subsequent games. It's not just like old times, because we're in the old times in Mass Effect 1. There's no roasting Shepard or other squadmates because Garrus is keeping it professional and just seems happy to be here. He's very deferential and thankful to Shepard during our conversations with him. Garrus has a renegade, get the bad guy whatever the cost attitude, and in many cases, Shepard feels like Garrus's older brother or sister rather than a homie or potential lover like we see in 2 and 3. We spend a lot of time mentoring Garrus and can lead him down either a Paragon or Renegade path depending on our choices. This culminates in Garrus's personal quest to track down a rogue Salarian doctor / black market organ dealer named Salion. Of course, when you find the guy, Garrus immediately wants to put a bullet in the guy's skull. Renegades can encourage this behavior, while Paragons can talk him into trying to arrest Salion instead. While I tend to enjoy playing Renegade more in Mass Effect, in this case I love the conversation you have with Garrus if you take the Paragon route. Salion resists arrest, and you end up killing him anyway, leaving Garrus feeling like, well then, why didn't we just waste the guy when he ended up attacking us anyway?
So he dies anyway. What was the point of that?
You can't predict how people will act, Garrus, but you can control how you'll respond. In the end, that's what really matters.
Yeah. I don't think I ever met anyone like you, Commander. Well, I guess we're done here.
The quest with Dr. Salion is a good lead-up to Garrus's loyalty mission in Mass Effect 2, which I feel is a better overall exploration of the concepts of justice and retribution, given Garrus's personal connection to Sidonis. Rex is the most colorful and entertaining squadmate in Mass Effect. He easily has the best quips and banter during quests.
This radiation is instantly lethal to any known form of life within 500 meters.
Nah, just a pleasant afternoon in the sun for a Krogan.
The purge is lethal to all known forms of...
Shut up. Last thing I need is some virtual wench questioning my fitness.
He's also the most independently minded squadmate, and is the only one who is willing to go against Shepard when their interests diverge. On the surface, Rex seems to be a loose cannon, but after meeting other Krogan, especially in Mass Effect 2 and 3, we learn that Rex is much more level-headed and progressive compared to his brethren. We learn a lot about the Krogan from Rex, but in a much more natural and conversational way than, say, our chats with Tali. Rex isn't just an info dump about the Krogan. We learn about the effects of the genophage, a genetic sterility plague inflicted on the Krogan by the Turians and Salarians to prevent Krogan population growth. Lacking a cause and living on a planet turned to rubble by nuclear conflict, many Krogan, like Rex, turned to mercenary work. But Rex sees that his people can achieve something more than just serving as muscle for the highest bidder. This is one of the biggest reasons he joined Shepard's crew. After we spend some time with Rex, we learn that his father betrayed him and tried to assassinate him because of his political views on the future of the Krogan. Rex killed him in self-defense before fleeing. This event radicalized Rex and exposed him to the difficult truth of what his people had become. This motivated him to leave his home system and chart his own path. When Shepard arrives on the Citadel, Rex jumps at the opportunity to prove the Krogan can be part of something bigger than just mercenary work. And it's ultimately his work to help bring down Saren that catapults Rex into a clan leadership role in Mass Effect 2 and 3. For now, Rex asks us to help retrieve his grandfather's armor in one of the few squadmate loyalty quests in the first Mass Effect. Completing this mission will help us out later on Virmire, and can also yield some unique dialogue in Mass Effect 3. Tali is the only Quarian we meet in Mass Effect 1, and as such, she acts as a walking codex entry in most of our conversations. By contrast, Liara has like one line of dialogue about the Asari with a few cultural references sprinkled in here and there. The main things I remember about Mass Effect 1 Tali are: she tells us a lot about the history and society of the Quarians, especially with relation to the Geth. She can't sleep on the Normandy because it's too quiet, and she's on her pilgrimage. Much like Garrus, we don't see a lot of Tali's personality shining through during our interactions with her in Mass Effect 1. Tali is one of the most beloved characters in the fandom, but most of her best moments happen in Mass Effect 2 and 3. Tali's personal mission is the worst of the three quote-unquote loyalty missions in the first Mass Effect. It's a glorified fetch and kill quest. Go kill a bunch of Geth at several different outposts, then retrieve some nebulous data that you learn nothing about. Pretty underwhelming compared to her treason trial in Mass Effect 2, or even compared to Garrus' mission with Dr. Salion in the first game. When we look at the whole trilogy, Tali is one of the best squadmates, but in Mass Effect 1, she's honestly kind of mid. Along with Rex, Liara is the most fleshed out alien companion in the first Mass Effect. And no, that's not a pun because you can potentially sleep with her. She plays a much more central role in the story than any other squadmate in the game, owing to her connection with Benezia and her ability to help Shepard interpret his visions of the Prothean beacon. Despite being over a century old, Liara is still relatively naive and unsocialized. Asari do have a long lifespan, so she's still young for her kind, but spending 5 decades researching obscure Prothean ruins kept her isolated from other people. 50 years of research hasn't done her very good though, because she's still very far off base when it comes to Prothean history, as we'll learn throughout the series.
You show up and tell me all the answers just fell into your lap. It isn't fair. All those years wasted.
There's a rogue Spectre out there looking to destroy the galaxy. So quit whining and help me stop him, or I'll drop your ass back in that volcano.
Liara doesn't have a personal mission in Mass Effect 1, although bringing her along to confront her mother Benezia on Noveria yields a lot of unique dialogue and acts as a sort of personal journey for our young Asari friend. We'll touch on that more later in the story section, but first, we gotta talk about romance. One of BioWare's big claims to fame in the video game industry is pioneering deep romantic relationships in their RPGs. Many studios have gone on to copy BioWare's romance blueprint in games like Fallout 4, Greedfall, Cyberpunk 2077, Assassin's Creed Valhalla, and many others. And while Mass Effect was not their first game to have romance, it's certainly the one which propelled this RPG relationship format into the mainstream. Mass Effect allows the player to enter into romantic relationships with one of three characters: Ashley Williams for male characters, Kaidan Alenko for femshep, and Liara for either one. This romantic encounter culminates with an intimate scene before Joker makes the drop on Ilos. And it was this scene which sparked a bit of controversy amongst conservative media. Fox News famously ran a segment which basically paints Mass Effect as a male fantasy simulator.
Mass Effect is what it's called. It's made for Microsoft's Xbox system, and it features in some parts of this, you'll see full digital nudity. Imagine.
Jeff Keighley, formerly of G4, stepped up to defend Mass Effect, and he did a good job despite a lot of railroading in the conversation. It's a hilarious segment to rewatch today, especially if you're actually familiar with the game.
Luke Skywalker meets Debbie Does Dallas is a good thing. It's not. It's just not good. And I'm definitely not going to let Mass Effect in my house.
Compared to our current landscape of overly sexualized media, Mass Effect looks pretty tame by comparison. A little booty and side boob, sure, but nothing explicit. One funny quirk about Mass Effect's romance is that you may start developing these relationships without fully realizing it. Simply being friendly with characters like Liara and Ashley may give them the wrong idea and put you in the crosshairs of a romantic tryst. And before you know it, you're in the middle of a three-way awkward conversation with Ashley and Liara in the conference room.
Why do I have to make a choice? Maybe the three of us could,
In your dreams, Commander.
The sequels would go on to flesh out, no pun intended, romantic interactions, giving the player more options to date and providing fantastic multi-game arcs with characters like Liara. But the first Mass Effect was truly a trendsetter when it comes to video game romance.
And I'm definitely not going to let Mass Effect in my house.
Mass Effect's story opens up with Commander Shepard gazing out into space from a window in the Normandy, an elite Alliance spaceship. The opening moments on the ship provide a great drip feed of world building. You can learn all about the relationship between the alien Turians and humans, the First Contact War, the Spectre program, and the planet you're about to visit, the peaceful human colony of Eden Prime. Everyone on the ship seems a bit tense or puzzled about the mission. It's been painted as a routine shakedown run, but why is there a Turian Spectre coming along for the ride? We quickly learn that the grumblings of our crew are not unfounded, as Captain Anderson and the Spectre Nihilus brief Shepard about the real mission. We're supposed to recover an artifact from an ancient race that disappeared mysteriously over 50,000 years ago. This mission will serve both as an olive branch to get humanity into the good graces of the Galactic-wide Council, and to test Shepard's mettle as a potential candidate for the Spectres. Unfortunately, before you drop down, Eden Prime is attacked by a massive dreadnought containing an army of Geth, a race of synthetic robots that had isolated themselves for 3 centuries. You drop down planetside with Kaidan and Jenkins, while the Turian Spectre Nihilus forges ahead. The planetscape of Eden Prime was redesigned for Mass Effect Legendary Edition, and while I love the beautiful colors and particle effects, I kinda miss the grittier red sky in the original version of Mass Effect 1. Shortly after touching down, one of your squad mates, Richard L. Jenkins, gets shot and killed by a Geth recon drone. The Bioware devs were big fans of World of Warcraft, and this character was named after a popular WoW viral video where an AFK character named Leroy Jenkins rushes into battle ahead of his raiding party after not hearing their meticulous plan.
Alright, chums up. Ready, guys? Let's do this. Leroy Jenkins!
Oh my god, he just ran in. Save him!
Oh geez, stick and plane!
Oh Jesus, let's go, let's go.
Leroy Jenkins!
Rip Jenkins, good night, sweet prince. What's great about the opening of Mass Effect is the way they drip feed the lore to the player. They don't immediately introduce you to all the various alien races and conflicts in this deep fictional universe. We initially just meet a single Turian, then we learn about the Spectres and the Protheans, then the Geth, slowly unraveling more and more of the story. As Shepard searches the colony looking for survivors and answers, we link up with our second squadmate, Ashley Williams. She was stationed with an Alliance unit that was entirely wiped out by the Geth attack. Meanwhile, our Spectre ally Nihilus gets killed by his co-worker Saren, the latter of which tries to blow up the colony after getting access to the Prothean beacon. Shepard and crew sabotage the attack by defusing the bombs before approaching the Prothean beacon. Many players will also miss a brief hidden cutscene in this part of the mission. If you approach the railing next to the beacon, you'll trigger it. Yeah, here we go.
My god. It's like someone dropped a bomb.
That must be where the Geth ship landed.
Sovereign. And that's it. You can look at the beacon, just don't touch. They really should have put a sign up here because one of your squad mates, Ashley if you're playing as a male, or Caden if you're femshep, will approach the beacon, forcing Shepard to toss them out of harm's way before getting a disturbing message transmitted.
Shepard! No, don't touch it! It's too dangerous!
You wake up in the medical bay of the Normandy with a lot of confusing memories and a new mission. Find out what Saren is up to. You know what that means, it's Citadel time. I'll never forget my first trip to the Citadel, the hub of galactic civilization and politics. The expansive, clean white interior with flowing ponds and greenery is a wonder to behold, especially in the remastered Legendary Edition. While we get to explore other zones of the Citadel in Mass Effect 2 and 3, nothing beats that first impression of the Presidium in the first Mass Effect. At this point in the story, Shepard is asked to present his findings on the Eden Prime attack to the Council, who dismiss the commander's claims about the rogue Spectre Saren and the Reapers, pending more evidence. Captain Anderson asks us to do a little digging on Saren, pointing us to an information broker named Barlavon and a washed-out CSEC agent named Harkin. This is a great opportunity to explore the Citadel and chat up different NPCs if you haven't already done so. We can meet a cranky Volus diplomat, a shady Solarian with the most annoying fetch quest in the franchise, a sexy Asari escort, and a big stupid jellyfish, among others. As for the main story, there are two paths we can take. Barlavon will let us know about a Krogan mercenary named Rex, who was detained by CSEC after attempting to assassinate a shady bar owner / crime lord. Meanwhile, Harkin will tell us where to find a determined Turian CSEC officer named Garrus Vakarian, who we first met before our ill-fated hearing before the Council. Both of these characters can be recruited as squad mates, and our choice of who to recruit first will impact the end of the investigation. Either way, we'll discover that Saren was trying to get rid of a Quarian woman who had sensitive information about the Geth. The Quarian approached an agent of the Shadow Broker, attempting to set up a meeting to trade info for protection, but this shady agent set her up with Saren's goons instead. We make a move against the Shadow Broker agent Fist before racing to rescue the Quarian. You can kill Fist at the end of this conversation, or if Rex is in your party, he will shoot him every time.
Oh my god!
But if you brought Garrus instead, you'll have an opportunity to spare Fist. If you do this, Fist will turn up in a bar on Omega in Mass Effect 2. Come to think of it, this might be the first example of cross-game consequences from the main story. Either way, we'll present our evidence to the Council with the help of our new squadmate Tali. She gives us a bombshell that the Geth believe the Protheans were wiped out by an advanced machine race known as the Reapers. The Council is skeptical about the Reapers, but yoinks Saren's Spectre status, promotes Shepard to Spectre, and Anderson gives us the Normandy so we can carry out our mission to take down Saren. We're given 3 leads: a Geth attack on Feros, Matriarch Benezia's daughter who's doing research in the Artemis Tau cluster, and Matriarch Benezia herself, who was reportedly sighted on the corporate colony of Noveria. In most playthroughs, Therum is my first stop, mainly because it's where we recruit our 6th and final squad mate, Dr. Liara Tassoni. Therum is a volcanic world with a Prothean dig site. The combat and story here isn't particularly memorable. We land, kill a bunch of Geth, then find Liara trapped in a force field. Funnily enough, if you complete the 2 other main story missions before Therum, Liara will have been trapped here for so long that she thinks Commander Shepard is a hallucination.
Are you real? Oh no, don't be stupid, Liara. Humans do not come here, you're hallucinating. And talking to yourself. Oh, Goddess, I am going to die here.
We're here to save your sorry ass, so snap out of it.
You're rude for hallucination.
Hallucination or not, Shepard will activate a mining laser to blast Liara out of the force field. But before you can escape, a Krogan merc and a few Geth homies will attack.
We don't have time to deal with this idiot. Charge!
You'll escape the collapsing structure before bringing Liara up to speed on the Normandy. These post-mission conversations are such a gem. I love the dynamics between the different squad mates as they offer up their conflicting opinions on how you should proceed with the fight against Saren. After each mission, you also have the option to debrief the council. These calls are really important because they give us a golden opportunity to hang up on the council.
At least the mission was a success.
Apart from the utter destruction of a major Prothean ruin. Was that really necessary, Shepard?
I don't need this.
Communications cut, Commander.
Hanging up on the council has become a meme in the Mass Effect community, and Joker fondly reminisces about these moments in Mass Effect 3.
Did they at least validate our parking? Well, let me know if you want me to get them on the channel and then hang up on them. You know, for old time's sake.
We'll need to speak to Phi Dan for the next one. Feros is one of the most underrated missions in the Mass Effect trilogy, and the overarching story involving the Thorian and the colonists is incredibly interesting. We arrive in the midst of a Geth attack to find a group of survivors bunkered down in the heart of the colony. But when we ask around, everyone is reluctant to talk with Shepard, deflecting and telling the commander to speak to Phi Dan. After a quick conversation, we fend off another wave of Geth while Phi Dan issues a battle cry.
Protect the heart of the colony!
Remember those words, they'll come into play later. At this point, we need to push ourselves towards the Exogeny headquarters, where a Geth dreadnought is currently docked. But we can also take the opportunity to do a series of side quests for the colonists. If we do so, we'll meet a strange man who hints at the big reveal to come later in the mission. After arriving in the Exogeny HQ, we'll discover that there is a mind-controlling plant known as the Thorian, living underneath the colony of Zoo's Hope. Exogeny knowingly allowed the colonists to be enthralled by this creature so they could study its effects. Because the Thorian was alive during the time of the Protheans, it was able to enthrall and gain knowledge of that long-dead race. Saren effectively traded one of his underlings, an Asari woman named Shiala, in exchange for acquiring this so-called Prothean cipher from the Thorian. But after Shepard arrived, he ordered the Geth to kill the Thorian to prevent the commander from gaining the cipher as well. At this point, the Thorian controlled the Zoo's Hope colonists to defend it, so when Phi Dan says, "Protect the heart of the colony," he's actually talking about the Thorian, whether he knows it or not. We race back to Zoo's Hope to deal with the Thorian, but now the colonists are turned against us, in addition to the bizarre humanoid Thorian creepers and Asari clones produced by the Thorian. But before we do that, we gotta deal with the Exogeny company man, Ethan Jong, who's been ordered to purge the colony. In most encounters, Shepard will end up killing Ethan Jong.
I won't let you hurt these people anymore. Drop your weapon, or be prepared to use it.
If that's the way it has to be, heck, come on!
You can talk him down with a Paragon or Renegade speech check, but hilariously, you'll need either 10 points in Intimidate or 12 points in Charm to pass the check. This is the most stringent speech check in the entire game. It doesn't even take that much to talk down Rex on Virmire or convince Saren to delete himself at the end of the game. In any case, you'll also have to choose how you deal with the hostile mind-controlled colonists. The Bainums will provide Shepard with anti-Thorian gas grenades, which you can use to incapacitate the colonists, or you can just kill them if you're a ruthless bastard. But even on playthroughs where I save the colonists, I like to choose the dialogue options where I refuse to use the grenades because it's so unreasonable and funny to me.
You could safely use a nerve agent to neutralize the colonists.
Like a gas grenade.
I'm not stopping to ask them to breathe deeply. How can it hurt to try? Please, Commander. These are our friends. I'm not doing it. At least take the grenades, so you have the option.
Either way, after dealing with the colonists, you'll need to speak to Phi Dan one last time. This is one of the most haunting scenes in the game.
I tried to fight it, but it gets in your head. You can't imagine the pain. I was supposed to be their leader. These people trusted me. It wants me to stop you, but I won't. I won't!
Phi Dan truly is a real homie. Pushed to the brink by the Thorians' painful mind control, Phi Dan chooses to sacrifice himself rather than attack Shepard. So next time you're on Feros, be sure to pour one out for Phi Dan. Unlike Phi Dan, the Thorian is in no mood to speak. Having already been betrayed by Saren, it doesn't trust Shepard and attacks our group, forcing the commander to kill it. But as I discussed in my Mass Effect Iceberg Theories video, I've always wondered if the Thorian truly died that day. The colonists continue to suffer from the effects of the Thorian spores, and in Mass Effect 3, it's almost as if they're being enthralled by it. But that's a topic for another video. Check out the link to my Iceberg Theories video if you haven't seen it already. Our final choice on Feros is what we do with Shiala, Saren's underling who got enthralled by the Thorian. She chooses to pass on the Prothean cipher to Shepard, and afterwards we can either spare her, in which case she helps the colonists, or execute her on the spot. Our decisions regarding the colonists and Shiala will have ripple effects in Mass Effect 2 and 3. While I've lavished tons of praise on Feros, Noveria is actually the best of the 3 missions we received from Anderson and Udina. We're tasked with tracking down Matriarch Benezia, aka Saren's second-in-command and Liara's mommy. But when we arrive, we're trapped in the port of this snowy corporate hellscape by bureaucratic red tape. Matriarch Benezia recently traveled to the Peak 15 research station, but the stodgy Solarian director Annaleus will not allow us to leave the port unless we obtain a garage pass, which he is initially unwilling to give us. One of my favorite things about playing RPGs is the freedom the player has to complete objectives in creative and interesting ways. Not every RPG does this or does this well, but the Noveria mission in Mass Effect is a prime example of player freedom at its finest. There are at least 5 different ways we can obtain the Garage Pass in Port Hanshan. The fastest path is to rat out the Hanar merchant named Opold, who asks us to smuggle some goods on his behalf. The other 4 options involve a bit of corporate espionage. Annaleus has been embezzling funds and was caught by a Turian official named Lorik Keen. Annaleus has Lorik's office raided, and the Turian asks us to recover the evidence at the urging of Gianna Parasini, Annaleus' secretary/plant for the executive board. Upon recovering the evidence, we have 4 different options on how to proceed. 1, we can turn over the evidence to Lorik Keen. 2, we can turn over the evidence to Annaleus. 3, we can convince Lorik to testify against Annaleus. Or the most ruthless option is number 4, we can rat out Gianna Parasini to Annaleus, which leads to the wildest outcome of all.
Your secretary is a plant for the executive board. Internal affairs, she said.
That is good to know. Would you mind stepping outside? I'm afraid I will have to let Miss Parasini go. It can't wait. Your mind has not been fully on your duty to me.
I don't understand, sir.
I'm not losing this job.
Annaleus, if I don't report in, the board will figure it out. Put the weapon...
I said I'm not losing this job!
I can't think of any other quests in the Mass Effect series which give the player so many different options to attain the same goal. Most quests either have 2 or maybe 3 different outcomes, but this one has 5, and the Garage Pass is just the first part of the mission. Afterwards, we still have to go to Peak 15 and deal with Benezia. After a brief drive through the snowy mountains, we arrive at the train station only to discover it's overrun with strange bug-like beings. The Rachni were believed to have completely died off roughly 1,000 years ago when the Krogan wiped them out during the infamous Rachni Wars. But, in a stroke of luck, a frozen egg was discovered on a derelict Rachni ship, which the Binary Helix Corporation hatched and grew in their Peak 15 lab. The egg turned out not to be an ordinary Rachni, but a Rachni queen capable of birthing even more offspring. Binary Helix, with the backing of Saren, saw an opportunity to create a Rachni army. But the plan backfired because Rachni children go into a frenzy when not raised in the presence of their mother's songs. The Rachni quickly overran the station, leaving just a small surviving skeleton crew at Peak 15 under the protection of the bald man Captain Ventralis. A bald guy, eh? Gee, I wonder if he'll be a villain.
White plus bald equals toxic.
But before we can deal with any of that, we first need to get the train station systems up and running, which starts with completing this annoying plate puzzle to reboot the station VI Mira. It's well worth the 100 Omnigel to skip this puzzle. Interacting with the station VI is pretty hilarious because it has even less dialogue functionality than ChatGPT. We really can't get much useful info out of old Mira, but there are some great quips with your squadmates.
Is there an Asari here?
There is an Asari I cannot identify standing next to you.
How you tolerate literal-minded VIs is beyond me.
At this point, we'll have several different options for locating Benezia. Captain Ventralis tells us that Benezia went to investigate the hot labs. This is a lie. He's on Nezi's payroll, so naturally he diverts us away from her real location, which is the secure lab. If you proceed to the hot labs first, upon your return, Ventralis and his men will attack you. Eventually, you'll need to get into the secure lab, but there are 2 other methods. The first is to simply hack the door. This is the worst option as it will turn everyone hostile and prevent you from dealing with the merchants in the station. You also won't be able to pick up the Noveria quarantine side quest. The last option is to do the aforementioned side quest with Dr. Zev Cohen, who is tending to some quarantine patients in the med bay. They became sick after a failed bioweapon experiment. Cohen will ask you to enter the quarantine lab to mix up a cure for the toxin. If you take this route, you'll be attacked by an Asari commando who is working for Benezia. After dispatching with her, you can return to Cohen and receive a pass to the secured lab zone where Benezia is. The confrontation with Benezia is quite interesting, especially if you bring Liara along for the ride. Benezia seemingly has no regrets about any of her actions at first, and is singularly fixed on helping Saren, starting with killing you. But after the battle, we learn that Benezia was actually indoctrinated during her time on Saren's warship called Sovereign. Up to this point, we haven't learned much about indoctrination or the Reapers, and while many of Benezia's actions were deplorable, she wasn't entirely of her own mind. But she did manage to resist indoctrination enough to betray Saren by copying the coordinates of the long-lost Mu relay to an OSD and giving it to Shepard. In the end, we still have to kill Benezia when she goes off to perks again.
Die!
In the aftermath, we faced one of the most significant decisions in the entire game: what to do with the Rachni Queen. It's unfathomable to hold the fate of an entire race in your hands, and that is what Shepard is faced with at this moment. The Rachni were completely extinct for 1,000 years, but now they have a second chance at life because of the Queen sitting before us. If Shepard lets her go, the Rachni can go, replenish their population, and perhaps rejoin the Galactic Order. But it was the Rachni's warmongering that led to their extinction in the first place. 1,000 years ago, they nearly overran the galaxy, only to be stopped by Krogan intervention. Millions of Krogan died putting down the Rachni, and if Rex is present, he'll remind you of that, encouraging you to incinerate the Queen. This was a really tough choice for me on my first playthrough, and it still ranks as one of the most memorable moments in the trilogy for me. After you've completed 2 of Anderson's main story missions, the Council will contact Shepard and ask him to investigate a missing Salarian recon team. The Salarians sent a message to the Council on a channel reserved for top priority messages, but there was nothing but static. They only know the location of the message, Virmire. As I mentioned in a previous video on this quest, Virmire is the most iconic mission of the first Mass Effect game. We've got the tense standoff with Rex, Kirahi's hold the line speech, the decision between Ashley or Kaidan, our first face-to-face with Saren, and a conversation with an actual Reaper. These moments still stand up as some of the most memorable in the entire trilogy. On top of this, Virmire is a beautiful tropical planet that is fun to explore. But don't let looks fool you, there's some shady business going on here. Upon arriving at the Salarian camp, we discover that Saren has developed a cure for the Krogan genophage, a sterility plague which has greatly limited the Krogan population over the years. Saren is using the facility to breed an army of Krogan that he will use as cannon fodder to help the Reapers subjugate the galaxy. Kirahi's plan is to distract Saren's Geth and Krogan foot soldiers, while Shepard and crew sneak a nuclear bomb into the facility. Naturally, our Krogan squadmate Rex isn't exactly thrilled to destroy a cure that could save his people, and it's up to Shepard to talk him down. The confrontation with Rex is legendary. In my first playthrough of Mass Effect 1, I went into Virmire completely blind and had no idea what would happen. I hadn't completed Rex's family armor mission, and I basically was shooting from the hip in this confrontation. So imagine my surprise when mid-conversation, just as Rex and Shepard had guns trained on each other, Ashley Williams came in out of nowhere and shot Rex in the back.
No more talk, Shepard. I've got to do this my way.
I don't think so, friend.
Why the hell did you do that? I was still talking to him.
I'm sorry, sir. I couldn't take the risk that he might injure you. Or worse.
That's not your call. Never do that again, understood?
Understood.
Wait, what? Did you just kill him, Chief?
Better him than the commander.
Yeah, I suppose.
It's difficult to overstate just how shocking and rare an outcome like this is in modern video games. Companion characters are usually draped in copious amounts of plot armor, and developers make it nearly impossible to anger your crew in a way that leads to violent confrontation. So it's truly wild to see a major character from your team get killed off in a cutscene based on the actions you take. There are other outcomes to this confrontation as well. Shepard can kill Rex himself, another bad choice, or you can talk down Rex with a speech check if you have 8 points in Charm or Intimidate. Rex will also automatically stand down if you completed his family armor mission, or in an extreme edge case, if you have not recruited both Liara and Garrus before Virmire. In any case, the Mass Effect trilogy is much richer if Rex is still alive, so be sure to save him. Before you leave the Salarian camp, Kirahi will ask you to leave behind one of your squadmates to help his crew in their distraction assault on the compound. You must choose to leave either Ashley or Kaidan. Captain Kirahi's fate is also in Shepard's hands during this mission. During your approach to the base, Kirahi and whichever squadmate is with him will call out a series of objectives over the radio.
They're calling SAT strikes. Citadel, watch for comm stations. Alenko, can you see anything?
These all involve weakening Geth defenses. These objectives are completely optional, but if you don't complete them, Kirahi will be killed in the fighting, which is a shame because he plays a significant role in 1 or 2 story missions in Mass Effect 3. Once inside the base, you'll fight your way through Geth, Krogan, and indoctrinating Salarians captured from Kirahi's crew. A non-hostile Asari research scientist will unlock Saren's lab for you, which is where we have our fateful conversation with Sovereign. It's at this point we discover the true nature and goal of the Reapers, who come into sharp focus as the big bad for the rest of the trilogy. I still get chills every time I hear Sovereign speak.
Rudimentary creatures of blood and flesh. You touch my mind, fumbling in ignorance, incapable of understanding.
I don't think this is a VI.
But there's no time to idle. It's time to plant the nuke and get the hell out of Dodge before Saren's forces overwhelm you. Ashley or Kaidan will stay behind to guard the nuke, while Shepard attempts to provide assistance to the Solarians. But before you can do that, Geth swarm the nuke site, causing your companion to prime it for detonation.
I'm activating the nuke!
What are you doing, Chief?
At this point, the commander has to make a choice to save Ashley or Kaidan. Remember how I said how rare it was for a major companion to die in modern RPGs? Well, now it's happening again, except this time you can't save everyone. In really bad playthroughs where Rex gets killed, you'll end up landing on Virmire with 6 squad mates and leaving with 4. After deciding who you'll rescue, you'll come face to face with Saren and finally get a chance to understand his motives. Anderson initially painted Saren as a lunatic who just wants to genocide humans, but he was blinded by a personal grudge with the rogue Turian Spectre. In fact, Saren is motivated by a desire to save organic life from destruction at the hands of the Reapers, sprinkled in with possible indoctrination.
Why are you doing this?
You've seen the vision from the beacons, Shepard. You of all people should understand what the Reapers are capable of. They cannot be stopped. Do not mire yourself in pointless revolt. Do not sacrifice everything for the sake of petty freedoms. The Protheans tried to fight, and they were utterly destroyed. Trillions dead. But what if they had bowed before the invaders? Would the Protheans still exist? Is submission not preferable to extinction?
Your dialogue choices here will impact your ability to persuade Saren away from a fight at the end of the game. Once Saren is dealt with, and either Ashley or Kaidan is rescued, you'll leave Virmire in a blaze of glory with a nuclear mushroom cloud billowing in the distance. The Council is miffed by Shepard's brazen actions on Virmire, but you can just hang up on them anyway. Who cares what they think after all?
Looks like we lost the signal, Joker.
Understood, Commander.
Now that all the main story missions are complete, we can finally piece everything together.
Ilos! The conduit is on Ilos!
But before we can jet off to Ilos in a race against Saren, first we have to return to the Citadel and recruit a fleet from the Council. Udina and the Council have been at odds with Shepard's actions throughout most of the game, so it's not a huge shocker when they betray him. The commander reports on Saren's goal and the importance of heading to Ilos with a fleet to stop him. The Council thinks a simple blockade will be good enough, and when Shepard starts mauling out, they lock him out of the Normandy.
It's just politics, Commander. You've done your job, now let me do mine. We've locked out all the Normandy's primary systems until further notice you're grounded.
Nobody stabs me in the back, Udina. Nobody.
Anderson will be like, "You can find me in the club, bottle full of bub," and we can meet up with him to hatch a plan to get our ship back. While we're grounded, you can also complete a handful of new side quests on the Citadel, such as getting Adderall for a skezzed out Alliance negotiator, or getting courted by a right-wing lunatic. But we'll eventually head to Flux, where Anderson will propose either going into Udina's office to override the lockdown, or sneaking into the Citadel Command Center to unlock the Normandy from there. Your choice here doesn't matter too much because Anderson will be successful regardless, but still, the correct choice is to send him to Udina's office because this happens.
Anderson, what are you doing here? I didn't send...
At this point in the story, we're pretty much forced into the endgame. We can still explore other parts of the galaxy, but returning to the Citadel is not possible because we've just stolen our ship. So if you had any outstanding quests on the Citadel, then you're SOL for this playthrough. This has always been a pet peeve of mine. Ilos is essentially the point of no return in Mass Effect's story. Once we launch this mission, we have to see it through until the bitter end. If you're in a romantic relationship, Shepard will have an opportunity to consummate it here before we take on Saren. After some heated debate about the landing zone, Shepard makes a clutch drop of the Normandy planetside, but Saren seals the door before we can pursue him through it. Personally, I've always found Ilos a bit of a slog to get through, especially the beginning part. Ilos is essentially divided into 3 parts: Geth Shooting Gallery, Prothean lore dump, and Mako driving. The plot reveals about the Keepers and Protheus stasis pods, the Conduit, etc. are really interesting on the first playthrough, but once you know the mystery, this mission can be pretty boring. I think it's the linear nature of this mission which brings out these vibes for me. In any case, after beating up on some Geth and unlocking the door, you'll discover a Prothean virtual intelligence named Vigil, which tells us about the final days of the Protheans, how the Citadel was a big Reaper trap, how they sabotaged the Reaper's abilities to take over the Citadel directly, and how we can stop Saren by heading through the conduit and getting to the Citadel control room. The mission concludes with a tense drive through the conduit, which teleports us to the Citadel where we'll make our final stand against Saren and Sovereign. Shepard and crew crash land the Mako onto the Citadel, fighting their way through Geth and Krogan grunts before reaching the command center. It's here we come face to face with Saren again. After their fight on Virmire, Homeboy decided to get Reaper implants installed in his head because he started to doubt the supremacy of the Reapers. If you stuck it out in the conversation with him on Virmire and chose a consistent path of Renegade or Paragon dialogue options, you'll have the opportunity to convince Saren he's been indoctrinated, in which case he pops one into the dome and says sayonara.
It is too late for me.
It's not over yet. You can still redeem yourself.
Goodbye, Shepard. Thank you.
This is a wild ending for our antagonist, and it would have been a cool way to end the game, but regardless, you'll still have to fight a husk version of Saren as the final boss anyway, which kinda spoils the moment for me. I guess Bioware felt the need to include some kind of boss fight at the end regardless of which path we chose. Feels bad, man. After the first version of Saren is dealt with, Shepard takes over the station command before getting a call from Joker. The Destiny Ascension has been hung out to dry with the Council on board, but Joker assures Shepard that the Alliance fleet could save her if he orders it. At this point, you can choose to either abandon the Ascension or rescue the Council. This decision will have ripple effects in Mass Effect 2 and 3, impacting your interactions with Anderson, the Reporter, Bailey, and even the standoff with the Virmire survivor in Mass Effect 3, among other things. After deciding the fate of the Council, Shepard and crew have a final boss fight against the Saren Husk, which is now being controlled by Sovereign. Before the Alliance blows Sovereign to hell and Shepard catches a stray. Everyone's fine though, and you're asked to choose humanity's representative to sit on the Council, Anderson or Udina. This particular decision is less impactful, especially considering that Udina becomes human counselor in Mass Effect 3 regardless of who you choose. However, if you sacrifice the Council and installed Udina, then there is an all-human Council in Mass Effect 2, and Shepard will not regain Spectre status. Even though Sovereign is defeated and the Citadel is saved, Shepard knows this is only the beginning of the war with the Reapers. But the story of Mass Effect 1 is not entirely complete without mentioning its two expansions, Bring Down the Sky and Pinnacle Station. Released in March 2008, Bring Down the Sky was the first major story expansion for Mass Effect. The story focuses on a Batarian attack on the human colony of Terra Nova. The Batarians were mentioned in the base game, but this is the first time we meet them face to face. Many Batarians greatly resented humanity's colonization efforts and the rapid speed with which they were brought into the galactic fold. So a Batarian extremist named Bollock decided to hijack an asteroid with the goal of crashing it into a human colony to make a grand political statement. Bring Down the Sky is a relatively short but fun mission where Shepard and crew deactivate the mining torches propelling the asteroid before confronting the terrorist Bollock, who has taken several human engineers hostage. Shepard has the choice to either let Bollock escape so he can save the hostages, or say f*** them engineers and attack Bollock instead.
I'm not letting a terrorist like you go free. Do what you want with the others, but it'll be the last thing you do.
I hope this is worth it.
If you attack Bollock, he kills the hostages, but you'll have the chance to either arrest or kill him after the battle is complete. This decision will have ripple effects in the sequels, most notably in Mass Effect 3 when Bollock confronts Shepard on the Citadel. Pinnacle Station released the following year, and it has been largely forgotten by the player base. Infamously, Pinnacle Station was excluded from the remastered Mass Effect Legendary Edition because Bioware could not gain access to the original source code. However, there are mods that recreate Pinnacle Station in Legendary Edition if you're playing on PC. Pinnacle Station was developed by a third-party company called Demiurge Studios, and the expansion doesn't feel very Mass Effect, for lack of a better term. It's basically a combat simulator with little to no story beats and no choices to make. Compared to Bring Down the Sky, it's a forgettable experience and you're not missing much if you haven't played it. But Shepard gets a badass apartment at the end, and you can farm some of the best gear in the game, so it's not all that bad. There will never be another game like Mass Effect. Even within the Mass Effect franchise, we'll likely never see a game like ME1 again. It was groundbreaking in the way it established the rich lore of this franchise and gave us a galaxy of opportunities to explore for the very first time. From uncovering the mysteries of the Reapers, to assembling our first crew of Squadmates, to experiencing that sweet, sweet space romance, all the while deciding the fates of entire races and taking on a galactic-wide threat. Mass Effect is an experience like no other. And while certain aspects of the gameplay feel somewhat outdated or less polished than the sequels, this game provides an unforgettable experience that remains unmatched in the science fiction genre. Only time will tell if future Mass Effect games can recapture the vibes established by the original trilogy and live up to the building blocks established by the first game in the franchise. The idea of making big story choices and having realistic interactive conversations with characters who feel true to life. This is something we lost in Mass Effect Andromeda. At the time of writing, Bioware is working on a new Mass Effect game. It's probably several years away from release at this point, but I really hope the developers are taking notes from the OG. So there you have it. Over 15 years later, and Mass Effect is still a masterpiece. If you like this video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to Big Dan Gaming for more Mass Effect and RPG videos. Big shout out to all the channel members for supporting my content. Until next time, this has been Big Dan. I should go.